Greenwell's evening hour. No, hey guys. Uh, Last time we was talking about John Brown and how John Brown went through the South, uh, causing mayhem, killing a lot of people, mostly white slave owners, and this made a lot of people upset, especially in the South, because this crazy man, is going around killing his own kind. And back then, people would call him things like, a race traitor or a slave lover, and those were really big insults. The thing is that a lot of people in the South thought that the North had sent John Brown into the South to cause all this havoc, and this caused a lot of mistrust to them. So this will lead into what we're going to talk to today, because there's this huge mistrust, and there's a mistrust in the North and a mistrust in the government. So we're going to talk about the election of 1860. And in the election of 1860, we had a lot of things that were going on. So let me start off by showing you this, and you'll be surprised. Now, when you guys think about elections, a lot of you think Republican, Democrat, two people. So right now you're probably thinking that, of course, Donald Trump's going to run for president, and then it'll probably be Bernie Sanders, or it will be Joe Biden. So it'll only be two people, right? Well, in the election of 1860, we had something that was a little bit different. We had four people running for president. And as you can see, you had the Democratic Party. Now, today there's one Democratic Party. Back then there was one Democratic Party. But if you look right here, you see that you have two people that are running as Democrats. The Democratic Party itself was split. And the reason it was split is because you had people in the South who were really for slavery and wanted to keep slavery. And you had people in the North who were kind of Democrats in the North that were kind of like they were for slavery, or they were for the democratic views, but they were kind of like So they couldn't narrow it down to one candidate. And that was a big problem. So in the North, Northern Democrats did not agree. Northern Democrats chose Senator Stephen Douglas. So these people in the North, they chose this guy to run for president. He opposed slave code in territories and he supported popular sovereignty. So that just means that if people are living in these new territories out west, they can vote for themselves. Southern Democrats, they voted for John Breckinridge. Breckinridge was a Democrat who supported federal slave codes in territories and also supported popular sovereignty. So these two people were well known. One wanted slave codes. Those are the codes that mandate how you can treat your slave, things you can do to your slave. So Stephen Douglas was for slavery. He just didn't want slave codes. And because he lives in the North, Breckinridge did. Meanwhile, there was this brand new political party called the Constitutional Union. Now, it's funny because the Constitutional Union main purpose was creating a political party that would keep the country together. That was their only thing. They wanted to enforce the laws of the Constitution and not look at anything else, just the Constitution, make those laws, very prominent. And that was it. They didn't say anything about slavery or nothing. They didn't even touch slavery. If you look right here, it says Constitution Union. They avoided the slavery issue, and they wanted to keep the country united. So that was their only purpose. And they nominated a guy named John Bell. But then the Republican Party, remember, the Republican Party is brand new. It's under 15 years old. So they ran one election already, and they lost in that last election for president. Now they're coming again, and they're running. And Senator William Stewart of New York was at first going to be the Republican nominee. Now, at the very beginning, he was a well-known senator. People kind of liked him. But remember when Abraham Lincoln ran against Douglas? He ran against Stephen Douglas for the Senate seat of Illinois, and they had all those debates. Well, when they was doing all those debates, Lincoln won a lot of those debates, but he wasn't as well known as Douglas. So Douglas won Illinois. Well, Lincoln just didn't go away. He kept practicing law, stayed in politics, and people started to hear his name all across the country. So people started to like and respect him. And when Douglas was one of the nominees to be the Democratic presidential nominee, one of them, everybody's like, hey, why do we need Stewart? Let's go with Lincoln. So they nominated Lincoln, and now we have Lincoln and Stephen Douglas again, part two. But this time it's not for senator; it's for the presidency of the United States. Now, Lincoln himself was a moderate. Lincoln never said he wanted to get rid of slavery. He never said, I am going to get rid of slavery. Lincoln himself wanted to keep, well, I didn't say he wants to keep slavery. He would rather keep slavery as it is at that moment than destroy the United States. So he once said, if I can save this country and not free a single damn slave, I'll do that. And he really meant it. What Lincoln was opposed of is the spreading of slavery. He did not want slavery to spread. And he made that abundantly clear. He kept telling people he don't care about popular sovereignty. Slavery itself should not exist in this country, but it does. We will not allow it to spread. And so people in the South, they didn't like Lincoln. The other three candidates, they never said anything like that. So that's why a lot of people in the South really liked them, but hated Lincoln. They were 100% sure that Lincoln was going to destroy their rights and take away their slaves. Well, when it came to the election, Lincoln himself won a lot. Lincoln himself won 180 of the 183 electoral votes in the North, or in the free states. And if you look right here, you'll see all these red areas. Lincoln won. The next person to even come close was Breckinridge. Breckinridge came, but he only won 72 electoral votes versus Lincoln's 180. Next was Douglas. Douglas only won 12, and he won 2 states. And then you have the Constitutional Bill. They win 3 states, but in 39. So it's pretty, I mean, honestly, if the Democratic Party hadn't been split up, Breckinridge would have won. Breckinridge would have became the president. But the Democratic Party was split up, and then you also had the Constitutional Union Party that was thrown in there. And if you didn't have those things that would make the perfect storm, Lincoln would not have been elected. He would have won the northern states and Oregon and California, but he would not have won the rest of the states, and he would have lost. You can only imagine how this would make the South feel. The South was like, what the bleep, 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 right? They were really upset about this. So what happened was Lincoln insists. Now remember, between the time you get elected and the time you become president, there's like 2 or 3 months. So you're called the president-elect. A few days after Lincoln won the presidency, before he is the president, South Carolina succeeded from, South Carolina held a special convention to see if they wanted to secede from the Union. Secede means to leave. They wanted to leave the Union. They felt that if they called a special convention, got their stuff together, and then left, then everything would be okay. The North would be upset, but hey, they could be their own country. It didn't quite work out that way. Lincoln was like, I will not let you leave. Lincoln stated, no state upon its own mere motion can lawfully get out of the Union. Union means the country. Lincoln also said they can only do so against the law or by revolution, fighting. So that's what happened. There was this senator from Kentucky, and it's funny because Kentucky is always in the mix. His name was John Crittenden, and he had proposed amending the Constitution So it would make the South happy. So if you in the Constitution say that we're going to protect slavery, we're going to allow popular sovereignty in the West, or we're going to allow slavery in the West, then we can save this country, right? Yay. But Lincoln was like, no, I'm not having that. So when they brought this up in Congress, Lincoln told the other Republicans, don't vote for that. So they didn't. So that fell through. Um, so it brings us to the Confederate States of America. So if you look here, you have South Carolina. They and on December 20th, 1860. Now remember, Lincoln isn't president yet. He is not. So on December 20th, 1860, South Carolina secedes from the Union, or says they're going to secede. Mississippi, Florida, Alabama, Georgia, Louisiana, and Texas also secede from the Union, and they come together and have a convention, and they form what they call their own country, the Confederate States of America. Now, I want you to remember that Lincoln doesn't recognize the Confederate States of America, but for 4 years, there was another country that was there, and it was called the the CSA, Confederate States of America. Now, if you look on the map here, you see South Carolina was first, then you have Mississippi, then you have Florida, Alabama, Georgia, Louisiana, and then Texas. You'll see here that Arkansas, Tennessee, North Carolina, Virginia, they follow suit as well. But do you see here where this would be Oklahoma, this would be Missouri, this would be Kentucky, this would be West Virginia, and Maryland, and Delaware? Those are slave states as well, but they don't leave. So we're going to call them border states. They're border states because they have slaves, but they refuse to leave the Union. And they form the top border of the Confederate States. And it's very good because it does help the United States out in the long run, which we'll see. So back to the Confederate States. So now they're their own country, right? What do they need? They need a president. So they vote for this guy. His name is Jefferson Davis. Jefferson Davis becomes the first and only president of the Confederate States of America. The problem is he doesn't want the job. He really wanted to be the head of the general of the Mississippi troops coming into this conflict that they know is going to happen. But he gets elected. Well, I didn't say unanimously, but he does get elected. And when he gets the news, he's like, "Oh man, well, okay, I guess I'll take it." So he reluctantly takes the post as president of the Confederate States. Now there is a big question. I'll go back to this map. So you see the light blue and the purple. Those are the Confederate States. The thing is, the United States has forts in those areas. Who does those forts belong to? Think about it like this. Who built them and put troops there? The United States. But now the United States doesn't control that anymore. So what happens to those areas? That was a big, big issue because those are supposed to be federal lands. But if they're not in their same country anymore, do they still belong to the United States or do they belong to the Confederate States? Lincoln said, "I will not give up this land. This is our land. These are our bases." Because he was really, really hoping that the Confederate States would be mad, but once they listened to him and heard that he wasn't going to give up or try to take away their slaves, they would cool down and then come back. But the Confederate States wanted these forts, and remember, there are ships in the forts that are along the coast. There's ammunition, guns, and cannons in the other forts that are all throughout the South, especially along the rivers. So that's millions and millions of dollars worth of stuff. And he didn't want to give that up. And plus, the soldiers that are at those forts also are American soldiers if they came from the North. So they don't want to give those up either. But the South was like, dude, you better give those up. Lincoln was a strong proponent in believing that the United States government was ran or was governed by the people. And he was like, I cannot allow, I in good faith, I cannot allow the South to secede or try to secede and not put up a fight, because without the people, without the South, without the North, this is a separated, broken down country. So he was like, you know, I'm not going to give this up. And the South was very unhappy about this. Um, And so I'm going to leave it there. I just want you guys to know and understand that in the South, they were really upset with this Lincoln presidency, and he hasn't even been sworn in. Like, he's not the president; he's just the president elect. So what's going to happen when he does become president? So before he even became president, his country is split in half, and now he's on the brink of war. He's really, 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 really hoping that it doesn't come to war, but you already know what's going to happen. And one of the big, big issues is going to be that fort issue. And I just want you to remember that for the next video. You guys take care, be safe, and I'll see you guys later.